Happy Thursday and welcome to this show today. It's been a doozy. We've had amazing shows going on our third hour, and I think we saved the best for last. I'm really excited about the guest that we have today, so I'm going to keep the intro really short. Excited about both guests. We're going to learn a little bit about marketing and what gets people going with the great David Meltzer. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to listen to him. Literally, the amount of time that we get to listen to him, I would take out a pad and a piece of paper and a pencil and really knock down what he's talking about. I mean, it's amazing. It's like my good buddy Chris Hoffman would say, full of golden grenades of knowledge. So pay attention to that. And then we're going to have an amazing segment on the show. We're going to have our friend Edward Jackowski come back, basically the godfather of fitness experts. It's going to be on and talk about what you need to do, what exercises are right for you, so you could lose that COVID-20 that we've all kind of got as we've been in quarantine. And now summer's out, so sun's out, guns out, right? So we have Edward joining us today. So stay tuned for an amazing show. I'm really excited about this guest that we have today on Thursday Throwdown. It was an honor to what he accepted my invitation to come onto this show. I've been following our guest for years. He's a big part of why LifeFlip Media, the company that I run when I'm not doing the show, has been so successful. So let's please welcome to the show the amazing David Meltzer. If you don't know David, you really should go out and check out his Instagram and his amazing work that he's done. He is the driving force behind so many entrepreneurs and on his mission to get over 1 billion people to be successful. I mean, who has a mission that's what they want to see? They want to see other people be successful. So let's welcome to the show, Mr. David Meltzer.
How are you doing today?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So you've had an amazing career, especially in the sports world. And as everybody knows on our show, I'm a huge sports fan, work with a lot of athletes. We've worked with guys like Dennis Rodman and the like. And you have an amazing background coming from the sports world. And now you're out there just motivating us all. I know we kind of have some friends in the same place in the world. I always laugh when I go on your Instagram and I see half my client list telling you how awesome you are. So I was, but I followed you before them. For the record, I followed you before they did. I just noticed that they're on there, and you're quite an inspiration. What had you leave the sports world and get into the current world that you're in?
It started with the bug light approach in marketing that I learned from Leigh Steinberg. So when I came as CEO of the world's most notable sports agency, I actually wasn't that interested in representing the athletes. I was more interested in what could we change by using the athlete as a bug light. What business could we change, business development, but most importantly, social change, charity, etc. And still make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun. Because like you, I'm still a sports fan. And in fact, my later business partner, Warren Moon, one thing I loved about him is he's actually a sports fan. He's not just one of the world's greatest quarterbacks of all time, but he's actually, he would sit at my son's flag football game and like a normal sports fan, he would talk the intricacies of what that 7-year-old should have done, which I'm sure you're shaking your head. Yes, you get what I'm talking about as a fan.
Oh, yeah.
And so when Warren and I built our business called Sports One Marketing, it was on that bug light approach in which we built, starting with him as a cornerstone bug light, being the first African-American quarterback in the Hall of Fame, the only quarterback in the Canadian and the U.S. Pro Football Hall of Fame, and using all the clients that we had from Leigh Steinberg as bug lights to get business opportunities, all with the charitable purpose or cause tied to it. Well, when Warren turned 60 and things changed within the context of his, unbelievable work ethic, wanting to, raise his own kid, he has a younger child, and, spend more time doing what he wants to do, I had to step up, myself as the brand, as the bug light. And so it started there, and then it took off faster than I anticipated. I kind of had the same plan as Warren. I had a 10-year plan. I started when I was 50. I met Gary Vaynerchuk at the Super Bowl. He needed some assistance with his sports agency. I needed any type of assistance building a brand digitally. I wrote books and spoke and motivated people in the traditional sense, but I truly wasn't a global brand. And that's where the inception of Gosh, and then when I started, the cool thing, Eric, when I started actually getting traction and momentum, which you witnessed because you were there before all those other guys, you followed me, and we're one of the few that turned into the many. The cool thing is, business became a lot easier when I didn't have the middlemen. It was always a handoff or there was a dance between, hey, I want Troy Aikman to be at this meeting, or I want this Bug Light to be here, and then the Bug Light was kind of he was there to attract the business, not necessarily to get the business done, if you know my difference. And where now I can get the business done. And so, I'm a one-stop shop. I stimulate interest, transition interest, and share the vision. And then my team does 80% of the work, which is managing and develop the vision to make it money, monetize it, help people, and have fun with it, so it thrives.
That's awesome. I mean, you truly, it's great that you talk about Gary, right? Because I think all of us just absolutely, Gary, so much, his Gariness. I don't know. Is that a word? Gariness. We're going to use Gariness. I've met Gary several times, especially working in the Bay, coming into working in the Silicon Valley. He's such an inspiration, right? And I've taken, just like you, I learned from so many. And what I love about Gary is he's like, dude, be authentic. Like, that was one of the questions. It's like, how do you separate yourself from all the noise, which is in athletics and leadership? CEOs of companies go through this. It's like, how do you, I don't want to say copy like Gary or somebody else, but how do you build your brand so you're very similar to Gary, but you're not Gary, right? Because we can all get on stage and drop F-bombs. That's not personally my thing. And yes, it's true, I'm a Marine, and me not dropping F-bombs is weird, but on a stage, I just don't do it. But Gary, that's Gary's style. And I loved how he was like, dude, don't be me. Be authentic. Be yourself. And then I see you doing the same thing. And one thing I want to make sure before we go any further is you have these amazing free Fridays that you've been talking about on Instagram that I'm just jonesing over, because you started advertising on Instagram for it. I was like, sweet, something free, which is of every entrepreneur's favorite word. And 2, it's from you. So, I mean, your background is amazing. The folks who have been on your terrific podcast, it's just, who wouldn't want to show up for this? So tell the folks a little bit about that, because it's something that definitely, especially during these times we're all stuck at home, where your free Friday comes into play.
Years ago, I started Friday trainings, which was mostly sales trainings, and they were free, and kind of the community picked up on it. They come for free lunch. Sometimes I thought they more came for the lunch than my training. And then 14 years ago, when I shifted the paradigm of my life to receive so I can give, not give so I can receive, to create value before I ask for it, and a variety of the topics that I talk about today, I went on a mission to empower over 1 billion people to be happy. That was my new mission, not to make over $1 billion like it was before, but to empower 1 billion people to be happy, to create a collective consciousness. My kids got a little bit older, started seeing teenage suicide. Then I did research and found middle-age suicide and the opiate addictions. And I was like, whoa, how can this many people want to kill themselves? There's a happiness problem, and happiness is my gene, man. That's my gig. That's what makes me me. Even when I was poor, I was happy. So in fact, the only time I wasn't happy was when I was buying the wrong things to impress the wrong people. And so those 14 years, once again, free lunches, mostly in my office and other places, every Friday, to give lessons about the pragmatic world still. I have some pretty hardcore pragmatic business advice, but also faith, how to blend your beliefs. And, using Gary as an example, right? Gary and I are completely different in some respects because I see him as a great motivator. He'll get you up, he'll get you back up. I tend to be more on the longer term inspirational side, where I want to get you there. I do say a few things that are motivational that get people up. I tell a few good stories, but Gary gets me up, man. Like I always say the first 10 minutes are so hard, and Gary V gets me going for those 10 minutes. I'll get you there after the first 10 minutes, but Gary's way better than I am at that, super F this. Let's get it, hardcore Marine stuff. I love that stuff. It's just not me, right? It's not my frequency. I'm more a ferocious Buddha. I'm ferocious about getting up, but I'm more the Buddha of, let me teach you how to allow and not quit at 25, 50, or 100%. Let me get you there. And so over those years, I've learned to find 1,000 people like you, Eric, that will come to my trainings, but also take it to the next step. Because I need, 1,000 people in my life to teach 1,000 people, to teach 1,000 people the things that I teach, to be happy. So 1,000 times 1,000 is 1,000,000 times 1,000 is 1 billion. What's so exciting to me is that when I first started the training and wanted to be a billionaire, nobody ever questioned me, right? I had made over $100 million. Nobody ever said, "Oh, you can't do that." But man, when I first started telling people that I want to change the world by creating a collective consciousness of happiness, people freaked out. They laughed at me, made fun of me. Now they don't anymore. They applaud me as well, and they want to be one of the 1,000 like you that are capable of doing it. And less people doubt me now about changing the world that way than they did about making $1 billion.
That's true. But, one thing, David, I could say is once I found you and was made aware of who you were, number one, I loved your background. Number one, I'm a huge sports fan, so obviously that ties in. But I built a business off of what you talked about being gratitude and just simple little things. We've built a business the last 5 years that has changed our entire life. Which is amazing for my family, for the folks that we employ, the folks we work with. And it's true. So I tell everybody about you and they're like, well, what's so true? And most people are like, oh, because he was in sports. That's usually, my friends know me so well. They're like, okay, Eric, another person who fanboys, who knows athletes and loves, athletics as much as you. I'm like, that's part of it, but it's just your message. And I think that's what makes you and like Lewis Howes and even Bedros and especially Gary, of course. Gary's always positive, but each one of you guys has your own niche, right? Where you can watch all of you and take away something that changes your life or makes your life better. But your message is always like, I guess I relate to you because you're a dad, number one. So it's easy to relate with somebody who's a father who has kids. You get it. We're going through, our struggles are basically the same. We put our pants on the same as what I was taught in the Marine Corps, right? What's the difference between a general and a lance corporal? Not very much. We both wear the same uniform. We get up, we put our pants on the same way when we have the same mission. Just no matter how many people underneath you. As a lance corporal, you probably maybe have 5 people underneath you. As a general, you have thousands. So it's always interesting. But your take on leadership and giving back and doing it with, money is important, right? It makes the world go round and you've never seen anybody crying on a jet ski. But you also talk about gratitude and being grateful for everybody that's around you. So, what advice do you have to folks these last 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks that we've literally, people are depressed. They have their heads and it's just, and we're in turmoil everywhere we go. The riots, the pandemic that seems to go away when there's riots. I don't even know how that works. But what's your advice to folks to keep their head up during these very tough times?
Yeah, I think we have to go to the certainties. What happens is it's a compressed uncertainty when the pandemic or the race riots or whatever else goes on. It compresses uncertainty and it illustrates accelerated change in a different context than we're used to. So it activates the amygdala in our minds. In other words, it creates a bigger fear-based conscious. It makes people have a need to be right, a need to be offended, a need to be separate, a need to be inferior, superior, anxious, frustrated, angry, guilty, worry. All of these things. And as I list them out, everybody kind of shakes their head and goes, yeah, I felt all of those ways in the last 12 weeks. And so what I suggest is when you're feeling that way, that's when you have to be the ferocious Buddha, right? You have to be aware and start listing out, taking inventory of your values to say, hold on a second, my thermostat in my life is the way I feel. When I'm worried or scared or angry or frustrated or separate or inferior or superior or shameful or any of these feelings of resentment that I may have right now, I need to stop. I don't need to accelerate in the wrong direction, create interferences, voids, and shortages that I'm going to have to pay the dummy tax for later on in life. Pain itself is only an indicator. It's a little blinker that's telling you, hey man, change directions. We got a lesson to teach you. You can get to a bigger and greater place by learning that lesson, finding the light in the situation. So what are the things that we are certain? Number one, our mindset, right? So if we can stop and say, what mindset should I have? And really trust the fact that I'm in control of my mindset. That is a certain. The second I call the heart set. How do I feel, right? We need to stop. And that's where now I can drop down. If I know my thermostat is the way I feel, my heart set, not my bank account, right? When the minute you start defining yourself by your bank account, you're on the wrong environment, in the wrong sphere. I've done it before. Everything defined me by my bank account. Now, bank account is only a piece of the mercury. It's a little bit of the ingredient of the mercury in my thermostat, but it's not my thermostat. So know your mindset, know your heart set. And then pragmatically, as you know, I love to mix in the pragmatic side of the generalities. Look, control what you say and what you hear. So I always tell people control what you say, because the minute you start saying something, it starts to materialize, you know, and I tell my children that all the time. Whoa, cancel. Don't even say that, you know. I'm going to fail no, cancel, right? We're going to do great. Things are going to happen in the right way at the perfect time. We are so blessed. We are so grateful. These are things that I love to say, but more than ever right now, you got to control what you hear. You know, I tell people seek. And if you don't write that word somewhere in your life, seek what you want, not just what you want, but what you hear. And so for me, if there's stable data that you need because of the compressed times of uncertainty and accelerated change, there's certain data that you probably want to know in your area, region, stock, you know, hospital facts or testing, or there's certain data you want to hear. Go seek it. Don't leave it on in the background inundating you all day long. Trust the sources that you want to trust, but go seek it. Once or twice a day is enough. Go find the information you need. If you want to check the stock market, go ahead, check it once or twice a day, right? But don't let it all in your back ear, because when it goes way up or goes way down, it's going to move the way you feel. Look, unless you're going to sell, you shouldn't be worried about it anyway. The day that you want to sell, make your mind up and give yourself a price, and then put a stop hold on that price. You know, the stock market is one of the biggest soul suckers in the world. It will suck, and it has me, real estate and stocks. Once I figured out how investments suck my soul dry of my energy and my focus and my attention and my intention, I started making serious money, because I put all of those energies into just making money. And then I found vehicles that just saved my money and made, you know, on a down market, my money always makes 2%. On an up market, it makes like 60 or 70% of what everybody else makes. But I never have to pay any attention. The first time the market dropped, I didn't know until people started texting me, dude, I lost 400 grand. Oh, I lost this. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember those days. And guess what? I'm giving no energy to it. If you need my help, I'm happy to help you, but I'm not sitting there all day long, not working, because I'm looking at my stock market and figuring out how much I've lost or how much I've gained. And I can't tell you how much money I lost figuring out how much I lost or how much I gained. A lot of millions. So be in control of your mindset, your heart set, of course, what you say and what you hear. And then lastly, you know, you have to be in of what you do, which is what you think, say, do, believe, the unconscious competencies you have. You have to be in control of practicing ending fear. You've got to make it a lifelong journey. Like I said, pain is just an indicator: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial pain, all just indicators that you have a lesson to learn. And the better that you feel about learning those lessons, finding the light, the love in those lessons. In other words, having a lens of productivity. How much value are you going to provide today? Accessibility. How accessible am I to help others, and how am I accessing what I want? In other words, how effectively am I asking others, do you know anybody that can help me? And then finally, a lens of gratitude, which is simply a lens. Gratitude allows you to find the light, the love, and the lessons and everything. Let me just tell you, I have dream jobs. I'm sure, Eric, there's times when you first met me going, man, I'd love to have that guy's job. I don't know anyone, and I've been around the biggest celebrities, athletes, entertainers, CEO, billionaires, all types of politicians. Every single one of them hates a portion of what they do. But what makes them all successful, the best of the best, is they've learned to love what they don't like. They've learned to love that percentage of whatever you are. If you're the sidewalk sweeper, if you're the teacher, if you're a multi-billionaire who owns the Dodgers, you've learned to love the stuff that stinks. And that's the key to life. And the lenses that allow you to do that is productivity, accessibility, and gratitude.
That's true. I love that. And you're right. I mean, all of those things are so key to get you through these dark times. And people ask me the same question, Eric, how come you haven't been like sad and downtrodden? Well, one, I thank the Marine Corps, because this last 9 weeks was nothing compared to military service at all. It's like, what? Like, and even the guys I work with, you know, working with these athletes who are at home, they're the same way. They're like, this sucks, but we'll get through it. And I find it funny because here you are talking about it, and it is amazing. I will give you this. A lot of athletes listen to you. Like, there's this circle of athletes, like, what you talk about, it resonates. You're not just up there just like, hold on, robotic. I'm just going to say, you know, you're up there and you live what you talk about. Where so many people, we have so many coaches out there, right? There's everybody's mini U's and mini Lewis's and mini Gary's and mini little Ed's and mini Bedros. I don't think anybody could be a mini Bedros. I don't think that's possible.
Although like I said, I want to copy his laundry room. He has 2 dryers and 2 washers in his laundry room. And I was like, whoa, I've never even thought of that. That's genius.
That is a good idea. Don't tell my wife that. That's the next thing we'll have in the house. I keep doing all this honeydew projects around here.
I'm trying to take out the cabinets so I can stack.
Yeah, there we
I
go.
don't have enough room. I don't have enough room like Bedros to put them wide.
Yeah, you see, I have barbershops in your house and everything. That's what everybody's doing now. It's the cool thing to do. But one of the things, I work with a lot of veterans, right? And I've been turning a lot of them towards you, because I find your message, I mean, number one, it's helped me build a business, but it's also helped me when there's times where I'm like frustrated, or I want to feed the trolls, as I call it. You know, those folks that show up and they got nothing better to do than just hate on whatever we're talking about. And our success it's like bad to be successful. Like the moment that you know, I always quote, unfortunately, a non-famous celebrity anymore, but talked about when you reach a certain plateau, send the elevator back down, or rising tide lifts all boats. I believe in that, and you get criticized. So I've been turning a lot of veterans towards you because your message is one that we need to hear as vets. And two, to be somebody outside the veteran community going, look, hold your head up. You talked about mental health. You talked about suicide. I know you're aware of the plight of the veteran, which is vet suicide. So for those vets who watch our show, and we have a lot, we have a show on Mondays called Military Mondays, which in its sense is first responders and vets. And we talk about this all the time. I really would love just to take a little portion of time here so we could talk about the vet community, even our first responders, because even the badge is being affected by suicide and heavy rates. And when I add first responders, we've actually added the healthcare workers to this, because we've had this. I mean, they've always been heroes to all of us, but now they're included in this first responder because they've been so key to us during the pandemic. What's your, you know, how do we stay above board when it comes to not getting in such this dark place? Where do we turn? Besides calling, if you're suicidal, let's just make it clear, call the 1-800 number and get help immediately. But to keep your mental health going good, I always suggest you and a few other folks, but you're primarily my go-to just because your energy and everything about you, it's like, you're not faking it. So I mean, what's your advice to vets?
So anyone in that type of arena, and I always say the arena is somebody that has put others' lives in front of them. And I do that economically. It changed my life, meaning I've never done what you've done, Eric, or our great vets or the first responders. And I'm so grateful for all of you, because I've only done it economically, where I said to myself, you know what? I don't care about paying my bills. I want to pay other people's bills. Not heroic, not like the horses of fire who would stand there and burn to save other people. And nobody will ever know what that's like unless you are a vet or a first responder, someone that, you know, and it could be a subtle thing of somebody that's going in right now to hold a hand of someone that's dying because their family can't be around them, putting their own self at risk to comfort someone else. And I get choked up talking about it because it means that much to me. So how do we help when anybody feels depressed, anxious, frustrated, angry? These are all the same emotions. They just are coming out in a different way. You have to go help somebody else. I have simple, first of all, I'm not a guy who will just throw out the pleasantries of, well, look at the glass half full, man. What are you talking about? Why are you depressed? You know, so what? You're broke and your wife left you and you're angry all the time and you have headaches and your spine hurts and, you know, you have dreams at night about shit that you saw when you were, you know, here. And these are real stories that my family, my extended family gives me every day. And I'm like, you know what, bro? I'm going to tell you, you're in for a great enjoyment. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, you're in for a great enjoyment to consistently every day, persistently without quit, pursue your potential within the guise of what you've experienced. All of us are damaged in the way that we are. It can either make you stronger or it can disrupt you. So there's two types of environment. An engine is closed. If you want to be an engine in a closed environment, when you have this disruption, it will shut you down. In other words, it will kill you. I promise you, if the engine has disruption, it will shut down and won't work anymore. But if you want to live in the expansive world of pursuing your potential, not my potential, right? There's certain things that you'll never, ever in this lifetime, none of you out there can do something that I can do. That's my own potential. But there's a ton of shit that you can do that I'll never, no matter how hard I work, no matter how great I want it, my potential is not your potential, Eric, and you're better at it than I am. And LeBron James, we know what his potential is that he's better at than me too. And, you know, that's cool. But what I want you to do is, how do we find or get started? First of all, the first 10 minutes suck at everything. So what's the best thing we can do? If you're feeling that way, go find somebody to help, go deed. It's the truth, and the truth vibrates the fastest. This is a vibration. It's a conditioning that doesn't allow you not to look at the glass half full. But I promise you, when you feel the worth of your humanness, of connected to everybody, knowing that not only are you not alone, but a tree doesn't have any branches. One tree would not go to war against another branch. You'll see. And when you just go out, even if you don't have someone to help, and you just take, I had my wife buy me, and she called me an old man by this. I'm 52. I bought, for my birthday, all I wanted was a trash poker. Do you know what that is?
Oh, yeah.
Which actually been really handy with COVID. But she's like, you gotta, because I go on walks with my wife so that we can get away from the 4 kids and try to find a center of what the hell's going on in our house. You know, we're sharing stories and figuring out the truth. But it pisses me off in my neighborhood that people would litter in my own neighborhood. So sometimes I can't help anyone because of my state of mind. And if anyone has 3 teenage daughters, I'm not a vet, but at least you know my challenges. I literally poke trash and carry trash. And it sounds stupid. It makes me feel really good. If I put a cart back at the grocery, or I talk about all the time, be kind to your future self, do good deeds. I loved it the other day. I went to the grocery, I put the cart back, and some dude drove by, rolled down his window. He's like, oh yeah, Dave Meltzer, you walk the walk. And my wife's like, what the heck did you do? I'm like, no, I did a good deed. She's like, what'd you do that's so good? I'm like, I walked back the cart. She goes, really? I was like, it makes me feel good. And the more you feel good, you're conditioning and attracting yourself to understand the thermostat of life is how you feel. And I want everyone, whether you're a vet, a first responder, or just depressed because you're a teenager, you know, don't quit. Don't be one of the 99% at 25% that feels stuck and quit. Don't be one of the 99% of the 1% that gets to 50% and quits. Don't be the person who gets to 99% of the way there and just runs out of gas and doesn't listen to Gary Vee to get back up, or Dave Meltzer to get the rest of the way there. Don't quit. Go do a good deed. You can always start again tomorrow, but go do the good deed. That will give you that 10 minutes that you need to get back on your way.
I love that you bring that up, because people, they always talk about like average Joes, right? Us average human beings, about falling out of love of what you do. And I always give the comparison. Now I'm going to give away. I live in the Pacific Northwest, diehard Rip City follower, love me some Dame Lillard. But Rodney Hood, he came here on a trade last season in our playoff run, and the city fell in love with him. He hit some big shots in an amazing 4 overtime playoff game. But Rodney said why he stayed here and why he loved Portland and fell in love with the game again, which was crazy to hear an athlete say, like, dude, I was done. Because a lot of people look at them as, you know, they're making stupid money. I mean, that's just the world giving it. But it's good to hear even an athlete be like, I fell in love because people were positive around me and just a community lifted them up. And you see the same thing with like LeBron and who was it? They were all bike riding in LA last week. I mean, how average Joe is it to see LeBron, who to me is a little bit of everything in the world, not just an athlete? I was laughing when you brought him up. What's he good at? I was like, what is the guy not good at? I mean, he's amazing for what he
Greatest
does.
athlete of all time.
Yeah, I mean, okay, well, I like Jordan too, but I'm aging myself.
No, Jordan's the greatest winner and more competitive than LeBron. But as far as athletes, strength, skill, hand, I've been around them all. Nobody can run as fast and is as strong, hand-eye coordination, the whole package of an athlete. That guy could probably play any sport he wanted.
Over Mamba? I mean, I'm a huge Kobe fan. Okay,
I'm a huge Kobe fan too, but LeBron's just stronger, bigger, and he has this more. He's actually faster than Kobe was.
Oh, really? Wow.
4.440.
I didn't even know that. So now I'm just geeking out. We're going to go off topic suddenly because Eric's going to be like, but Kobe was so scrawny and he could go down. I mean, sorry. I love Bron. I've met him. I have my own Bron story that's completely different. We met at a restaurant here in Portland. But, you know, just he was so cool and average. And, like, people always ask me, oh, when you're around these athletes, I mean, you probably get the same thing. There's average Joes. I mean, you're around them. They're normal people. I mean, here in the Pacific Northwest, people are blown away. They go to a Costco and run into Dame Lillard. They're like they're normal human beings. And this is a different market. Obviously, in LA, it's probably different. If LeBron walks into a grocery store, it's probably mayhem. But in the Pacific Northwest, it's a little different. And LeBron's taller than Dame. Dame blends in well. He's like 6'1". Yeah. So it's like, who's a little dude with a hoodie on, just kind of cruising around town. But anyways, before you go, one last thing. When it comes to like what would you give somebody starting a business, right? There's a lot of people who are unemployed. So instead of sitting on their butts now, they're trying to build a business. And I think we need encouragement. So I pointed people towards you, obviously. As you can tell, I point a lot of people towards you because
Thank you, by the way.
you've inspired my business. And our business went from literally an idea to a concept of my wife and I to we have 20 employees that we're proud of. We work with amazing people. We're a global company. And it's because you had so many, you and Gary, but you specifically, because your encouragement was when I'm sitting up in the middle of the night stalking people on Instagram. Sorry, that's what we do. You know, it's those middle of the night, you're sitting here with the lights on in your office and you're like, holy crap, am I doing the right thing? And then you hit my Instagram feed and it's like, what? Oh, wow, I didn't think of it that way. What advice do you give to these folks who are now looking to create something? Because they see those of us who have our own businesses, and we always know this isn't a get rich quick thing. You know, it took years for you to build your business, me to build mine. Everybody we've mentioned here, even Gary. Nobody got this. It was, I mean, I know people think Gary just, dad handed him money and Gary just built Vaynermedia, which we know is not true. And what's your advice to these folks that need to lift their heads up and create this business and they fear this failure thing, this that everybody talks about? Oh my God, I don't want to fail. And me in the military, it's like failure. That's how we move forward. I mean, that's our history.
Fail forward, exactly. That's how we learn the lesson. So I think you hit on two things. One is focus in on your capabilities. And so capabilities consist of your skills, your knowledge, and your desire. The common denominator between me, you, all the people that you mentioned, and the people that are successful in sports entertainment and in anything, they have desire to must be what they can be, period. So if you don't have a desire that you must be what you can be, then work on that first. When you are sure that you have that desire, that you must be what you can be, that's the spine, right? That's the heart, the soul of what you're going to do. Now, go look and see what capabilities that you have, skills that you have, and knowledge that you have, and make and see what synergistic or supplementary capabilities you need in order to effectuate the business that you think you're going to have. And then look and see what capabilities, meaning skills and knowledge, that you need or want. And then go find the person that already has it and ask them for help, right? So what we do is an ask and attract strategy in person, on the phone, via email and media, radio, print, TV, and social media. Always asking, hey, how can I be of service or value, which you do so well, Eric? But more importantly, if I can push anybody into one concrete, pragmatic way to be successful, instead of thinking that everybody's a gatekeeper, that they stand in your way, that you must overcome them, overwhelm them, oversell them, you don't have to. What you can do is treat them like a sponsor. Hey, do you know anybody that can help me? And sometimes somebody will actually be a power sponsor. They're going to say, you know what? I can help you, and I know somebody that can help you. If you do that every day, and you're very cognizant of your personal values and take inventory of all of your values aligned with these objectives of skills, knowledge, and desire, and you're able to maintain that desire that you must be what you can be, it's just a matter of segmentation now. And when I say segmentation, you know what I'm talking about. That's 17 and a half years. It may take you 10 years to get to 25%. Don't vote for what other people want. Vote for what you want. It may take you another 5 years to get to 50%. Definitely, you're going to be one of the 1% that make it there. Don't quit there just because everybody's telling you you can't live in your car. You're going to get divorced. You're going to lose everything. Don't do it because you're only 2.5 years on average from being 100% of the way there. Then 1 7/8 from being 200, half that from being 400, half that from 800. And that's where the hockey stick starts growing and accelerating. Your brain, your memory, and your own senses are not strong enough to pick up incremental growth. If you feel stuck, that means you're growing and accelerating. When your shoes get tight, that means your feet are growing, right? Your feet are stuck. They don't feel stuck if they're not growing. So say to yourself, oh, this is a good sign. I may not be where I want to be yet, but that'll come at the right way at the perfect time. But I'm growing and accelerating, and I know two things. Both things grow and speed up at an exponential rate, meaning it may be 2 miles an hour today, but it could be 4 miles an hour tomorrow, 8 miles an hour the next day. It may be 4 inches or 4 millimeters or 4 micrometers today. It'll be 8 tomorrow, 16, 32. So go ahead. I always call it the segmentation of 20. Take the smallest increment that you think you're accelerating or growing and times it by itself 20 times and see where you can be in just 20 simple segments, whether each segment takes a year or each one takes a week, each one a month. It doesn't matter. Think about it. I did it by years. I was like, by the time I'll have over 1 billion people happy, I promise.
I love it. Man, I just want to sit here and just talk to you forever. Can we just do that? Just sit here and you just talking to you in person is better than Instagram. I will tell everyone out there, if you're curious, it is much better talking to David in person. His Instagram's great, but
join me Fridays, man. Training, get some Q&A going. I'm here for everyone, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. I appreciate the opportunity, my brother. Let's do this again.
Heck yeah. Thank you so much, David. Everybody, Fridays, check it out. Stop by, check out his Instagram, give him a follow. David, I want to thank you so much for joining us today on the show. All of our vets and everybody, all of our listeners and viewers, well, I'm sure will be attacking your Instagram. Not that you need more followers, but
yeah, just ambassadors, brother.
Yeah.
Ambassadors.
Awesome. Thanks,
thank you
brother.
so much.
I appreciate you.
Hey, Edward, thanks for joining us on this wonderful, almost summer Thursday. How you doing today, bud?
Doing great. How about you?
I can't believe we're almost at summer. I think we've all been, I don't know if I can say we've all been in our homes, and we're going to get to this because one thing that's great about the pandemic is I've seen more people out like jogging, walking as a group, which is good, right? You're not sitting on your butt eating bonbons trying to gain the COVID-20. But we've had you on the show a lot, and we've talked about every kind of subject under the sun, but I want to get into the kind of fact versus fiction, right? Like, what is a lot of people are out working out, right? We led up to that. Like, what's the difference between all this stuff? One of the big things I hear about is like aerobic and anaerobic. Should I be working out and just running? Should I be hitting the gym? Like, you're the expert here, my friend. Your background, I have other health professionals refer to you as the godfather of fitness and bringing it to the media's attention. So let's break this down. You're the expert. What's the difference between what kind of workout is good for you? Is it all running? Is it a mix of both? What gives?
Okay. The first thing that everyone needs to realize is that in theory, Eric, all exercise can be good for us. That's the first thing. In other words, if you were to classify exercises, you've got running, jumping rope, swimming, walking, biking, lifting weights, doing a HIIT class, doing a yoga class. In theory, all of those can be good for us. However, they may not be good for you if, A, orthopedically and medically it goes against what you're doing, your joints, and B, can you maintain it, and C, is that the type of exercise that you're doing to get to your goal, whether that be tighten up, add mass, or lose weight. So we often hear, aerobic exercise and anaerobic, right? It's thrown around. But if I were to ask you, could you tell me the difference between the two?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I Googled it yesterday, and no.
Okay.
I still can't. I mean, I know a little bit from, obviously being in the military and going through sheriff's academies and those kind of things. Obviously, I think I have an idea about them, but by definition, probably no, because I think of aerobic workout today as 44-year-old Eric is hopping on my Peloton or going for a run, which I love doing both. To me, that's aerobic because I'm not touching weights.
And that's correct. But for the viewers out there, we still haven't defined it.
No.
We gave an example.
Yeah.
You just gave two good examples of it. So very simply put in layman terms, aerobic exercise is any exercise that we can do continuously without the need of a break. Anaerobic means exercise with a break, and we often hear the term without oxygen. Really, what it has to do is our heart rate. When we do aerobic exercise, Eric, the reason why you can do a 45-minute spin or Peloton or any type of aerobic run is because your heart rate does this, Eric. It goes up at that angle, And then it levels off, goes up a little bit, down a little bit, up a little bit, down a little bit. And you're able to take in oxygen because you're not overworking, which allows it to be continuous. There you go. Anaerobic is exercise that we must need to take a break. For instance, if you were jumping up on a platform, if you were doing a push-up or lifting a weight, now your heart rate does this, Eric. Look, it goes like this. Look at the difference in the degree of angle. Aerobic, anaerobic. So it starts out 80, 90, 110, 20, 30, 150, 160, 170. You have to stop, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
You have to stop in order to take in oxygen. So that's the main difference.
Awesome.
We all need both, but people choose the type of exercise thinking that, ooh, I heard that anaerobic burns more calories. And it does per square second of time, because your heart, the reason why is your heart rate's higher, you're working harder. So now you know that. However, if you're deconditioned, you can't do anaerobic exercise. So you do these short hit type of movements. You have to take these breaks. Whereas the turtle guy is biking on his stationary bike, and at the end of that hour, the turtle guy burned more calories. So, got it? That's very key. So yes, per square second of time, we burn more calories, but are we conditioned to do that? Let me throw out some data to you, then you can ask me a question. Only 1 out of 10 people exercise twice a week or more.
Oh, wow.
That's it. I'm not talking taking a walk. That's not exercise. A full body exercise regimen.
Yeah.
So out of that 10% now, which is a very small pool now, the population, isn't it?
Yeah, very small.
400 million, 10%, 40 million, right? So how many of those people are warming up, stretching beforehand, doing the right amount of aerobic that matches their orthopedic concerns, and are doing enough anaerobic weight bearing and toning exercises to incorporate what is called a full fitness program? And the answer is only 10% of that 10%. So that's why I always use the expression, people that run only for fitness. In other words, they don't stretch, they don't do anything else, and you know who they are. They are fit to run, but they're not, quote, fit.
Yeah.
Or people that lift weights are fit to lift weights, but they're not, quote, fit. So at the end, it's the total amount of calories burned. And as you get in better shape, then start adding in more anaerobic exercise, because your heart is stronger because of the aerobic that you did to train it to get stronger, if that helps you.
Oh, that does. That helps so much, actually. So let me ask you this, Edward. One of the big things, and everybody talks about, we're talking about, which one's better for weight loss. Everybody, a lot of people have gained some weight being in quarantine. It's summertime. It's hot. We're going outside. We want to not have dad bods or any other kind of bods. You don't want to be fluffy, or as our friends on Seinfeld once coined, muffin top. So let me ask you, Edward, which is better for weight loss, aerobic or anaerobic exercise? And can you kind of tell us why one is better than the other when it comes to weight loss? Everybody's always looking to lose weight, and there's a bazillion fad diets out there, but the one that I know always seems to work is exercise. But what is the right exercises to do between anaerobic and aerobic, now that we know the difference? Which one is the one that will lead to weight loss?
Sure. Okay, for people that are deconditioned, or let's say beginner to moderate fitness-wise, both are needed, but 70% of their workout should be more aerobically geared. For those people that are a lot more conditioned, depending upon if you want to tone or lose weight, right now we're talking about weight loss, 60% of your workout should be more aerobically geared. So people don't understand that in theory, here's a perfect example. You've jump roped, right?
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay. So what's the longest that you can do without needing to take a break? Is it 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 minutes? 5 minutes.
Personally, I've been able to do 5, and I had to build up. It used to be 3, but I have gigantic calf muscles. I don't want to show them on TV, but I have gigantic calves, so I can bounce for a long time. I love jumping rope. It's an amazing exercise that I found out by playing sports in my youth, and I found out it helped, especially in basketball. We had some amazing coaches that, to keep your Achilles strong and all that. And I mean, you see a lot of guys now, especially in the NBA, a lot of them are jumping rope. It's the way that they warm up, and it's an amazing exercise. And I know you are like
right,
masters.
But so in theory, if you were to look up aerobic type exercises, jump rope would be classified under aerobic. But the reason why you can only do 5 minutes is your heart rate. So although on paper, some exercises are classified as aerobic, for people that are not conditioned yet, it acts anaerobically. Interesting, right?
Right, it's crazy.
Yeah. So the best overall aerobic exercise is number 1, probably jumping rope. Jogging with sprint intervals in between is number 2. And swimming is number 3. And running up hills is number 4. Jogging on like a golf course. But it takes a long time to be able to do that. You can't even get people to walk a mile today. But you're telling them, the media is telling them, hey, you burn more calories in those HIIT workouts, Susan. All right, so Susan then tries to try that HIIT workout. She can't sustain it. 9 out of 10 times that individual is going to get hurt. So when you get hurt, not only you're discouraged, but you can't get fit. Rather than the person who goes into it not slowly, more prudently, and that person never misses a day of their exercise. So the most important factor in fitness is consistency. That's the key word.
Perfect. I love that consistency. I think that's a very good thing to remember when it comes to working out. Is I believe, what's the adage? If you do something for 20 straight days, it builds a habit. That's what I was always told. So I tell my kids that it's probably not true, but it is consistency, working out all the time. I'm still mesmerized by your first stat that you gave us about only 10% of people work out more than 3 times a week, which is crazy because to me it's just part of our day. You've been on our show before and you talked about scheduling it, and I took your advice to that. You actually told me that in person when we were both in a green room together, and I've done that ever since. I block it off. It's like, this is my meditation, this is my stretching, this is my workout time. So there's no excuse. Nobody gets in the way of my workout. And whether it's a 30-minute workout or 45-minute workout, I'm moving my butt and raising my heart rate up. And then I have my weights that I do. I love doing weights. Even if it's body weight, it's still working out. I mean, push-ups when you're over 200 pounds, that's a workout. Trust me. I'm
right.
Those guys.
You're right, because you are moving 200 pounds. Even if you do only 20 reps, you just moved 4,000 pounds. Think about that number. The equivalent of that would be bench press of 200 pounds, 20 reps in a row. Big difference.
Oh, yeah. So let me ask you, since we're on this topic, we're going to stay on obesity. We're going to be summer. We're 2 days away from summer now. So what are some of the top aerobic exercises for weight loss and to combat this evil thing that plagues our country, obesity? We have a lot of people, you mentioned it, and we're just talking less than 10% of people. I mean, what's the number one thing I hear? I hear a lot of people going, well, I worked out today so I can eat whatever I want, right? I burned, these Apple Watches and these Fitbits are great, but everybody goes, oh, there's my calories. I burned 600, so I can go have that gigantic cheeseburger because I burned it off. It doesn't count. So what are the top exercises? And if you want to cover these people who believe that you can eat your calories after you worked out and it just counts like, hey, I'm good, I worked out, so it doesn't even count, you're more than welcome to. But I really want to know I think our audience would love to know the top aerobic exercises that they can use.
Okay, if you have bad back or bad knees or bad joints, the number one exercise is a recumbent stationary bicycle, period. It's designed to support your back, support your knees, and you can sustain it aerobically, and you also can do intervals on it as you get in better shape. Second, for people with orthopedic concerns, would be swimming. But the problem is with swimming, because of all the conditions now, you can't swim without being interrupted. And also, when we're in the pool, our heart rates are lower. They're more sedated. So we're not burning as many calories. But for people that can really swim for 15, 20, 30 minutes or longer, it is an excellent form. For people that don't have any joint issues, running, jumping rope, and of course, the best thing that people can do is jogging up hills, jogging down hills, because it's going to work balance as well as get your heart rate up and get your heart rate down. So those are the best out there. The worst for burning calories is the elliptical. And that's why people love it, because they get on it and it's easy. So they're thinking they're working out their upper body. But if you were to drop your arms, Eric, on an elliptical, the arm things are still moving, aren't they?
Yep.
Interesting. So the only effort you're putting into that is holding on to the arms. You're burning a little more calories than, let's say, not. However, not that much. Of all the people that we test aerobically that come into Exude, the people that do the elliptical rate the lowest 10 out of 10 times. Runners, number one. Cyclists, number two.
That is crazy. And that's funny about the elliptical, because it's true. When we used to go to gyms, that was the one that, number one, they have more of those than anything else. And it's always full of people who are I always notice people are doing things when they're on them. And I mean, I used to be guilty of that with working out and being like, oh, I could do work and work out. And then I was like, no, why am I giving my pleasure, which to me, I'm sadistic. I like the pain. I like the release and the dopamine and all the good stuff of a workout. And you're right. It's anything that you don't really break a sweat on, to me, you're not really working out. If you're doing aerobic exercise, you should be dripping with sweat. That's my 2 cents of Eric running. I know anytime I've run in my life, I come back soaked. That's why I think I like CrossFit at the time, because you could leave a sweat angel on the ground. You were like, yeah, I did work out because there's my sweat angel.
Right.
The fun thing. But let me ask you this. And it talks about muscle, right? I mentioned CrossFit, I mentioned running. We've talked a lot. Is it true that if our bodies possess, more muscle, we can burn more fat and calories? I hear this a lot. My wife has friends that talk about this, and to me, it's like, so they don't want to be like, everybody thinks if you're jacked, you can burn more fat and calories. And I mean, I don't know the truth of it, because I have friends that work out, but then half of them, are secretly taking HGH or something else to work out. So it's like cheating to get to where they're at. And I know we all look at like professional wrestlers and guys like The Rock. Well, I mean, I also watched the Lance Armstrong documentary about those guys shooting up. And Lance, to me, he's cut, but he also rode the Tour de France. And you have to be a scrawny little dude to ride on the Tour de France. But, you kind of look at these guys and everybody talking about it. What's fact and fiction when it comes to this? If you have muscles and you're jacked.
Okay, so that's perfect, because this goes back to the beginning of our conversation. And that is, you had asked me what is the best exercise for weight loss? Is it aerobic or anaerobic? Well, let's say that you knew nothing about fitness. Okay, let's erase our minds from fitness. Let's take a look at athletes and how their bodies are built. Tell me the following. Are marathon runners thick or thin?
Oh, they're scrawny little dudes, because they can run those things in like under 3 hours.
Same with cyclists, right?
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay. Same with cross-country skiers, right?
Yep.
Same with swimmers, right?
Yep.
Okay. What are all those forms of exercise that they primarily do for their training?
Aerobic.
I just gave you the answer for proof. It doesn't matter whether you like what Jackowski says. It doesn't matter what you think your theory is. I'm not interested in what you have to say. I'm interested in only the science.
I love it.
Now, let's take a look at athletes that are thicker. Speed skaters have thighs the size of mountains, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sprinters, very muscular, right?
Yep.
Bodybuilders, are they thin?
Nope.
So the next time someone says to you that weights don't bulk and it's the best way to lose weight, I'll tell you what, based on that theory, let's take a bodybuilder and a marathon runner, switch their workouts, take a photo of them a year later. Would they still possess that body?
No, it would change. It would morph.
So
right?
there we go, class. Now I can help you.
I love it.
You got this? There's stubbornness out there.
Yeah.
There's stupidity out there. I'm not saying that aerobic is the only thing we need to do. What I'm saying is that depending upon your goals, your objectives, there are more movements that are better geared towards that goal. Weightlifting can be done aerobically, by the way.
Yeah.
But people don't know how to do it because they're not educated. So in answering now, let's get back to that question. If I have more muscle, I burn more fat. If I read that one more time, I think I'm going to explode. What people mean to say is, if we have a better body ratio, Eric, of a 200-pound person, of more muscle to fat. So instead of being 40% fat out of a 200-pound person, and let's take a 20% percentage of fat 200-pound person, one person has 80 pounds of fat, and the other person has 40 pounds, correct?
Yep.
In theory, if both ate cheeseburgers and fries, the 20% person would gain a half a pound, and the 40% person would gain 2 pounds because they're able to burn more calories, Eric, but this is the key, only during resting state. Not having to do with burning. You don't burn more fat. You burn more calories only during resting state. And you know what that is called?
No.
Sure you do. What is our basal metabolic rate? Our BMR.
Oh, that's right.
So now you know what BMR stands for. So people don't even know what these terms mean. BMR means during resting state, how many calories am I burning versus myself or an individual that has more fat or less fat. So when we get fitter, we can burn more calories. So we're going to go in the back door for obesity. Watch. I'm 40% body fat. I want to lose 30 pounds. I'm a big person. I have a lot of muscle and I'm over fat. So if you focus on losing fat, don't you now have more muscle?
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
That's what I said.
So for that person, they got to go in the back door. Got it?
Oh, yeah.
That's why fitness, although plausibly simple, it's not really, is it?
No, you've got this. Right now, I'm over here with my pen just taking notes because this has been, every time I enjoy talking to you. And I want to touch on a point because when I first met you, besides people screwing up our names, which was hilarious, you met my wife, who's very much into fitness like myself. And you guys had this great conversation. And mind you, this was before quarantine. And you guys had this conversation because my wife's in her mid-40s. And you guys started talking about how my wife switched because she used to do all aerobic exercise, right? And she was frustrated because the weight was not coming off at all. It was like frustrating for her because she eats right. And, she's very careful about what she puts in her body. She's no processed foods, pounds water, doesn't drink soda, doesn't drink, doesn't do anything. And the weight wasn't coming off, and it led to a lot of frustration. And you guys had this conversation, and she's like, I've really started going over to weights. And you told her, it's this fine line. You kind of have to mix it perfectly and tweak yourself. And she's been able to do that, and she's dropped even more weight and is completely in her eyes and in my eyes for sure, completely physically fit to the point where she's doing the right amount of, stretching has been key. Also doing weights, because for her, it wasn't because cardio did nothing for her. She just would be like, boom, and it was done. That's not a workout.
And that's because that's good.
Yeah.
But let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because when she was doing cardio, her heart rate only went up to a certain point, and she couldn't do that particular cardio that she chose more vigorously without putting undue stress on her joints. So what happened was she plateaued, not because of the type of exercise, but because when she first started out, her heart rate was 130, but now that she's conditioned, that same movement, her heart rate's only 100. So she stopped burning calories, she stopped raising her metabolism, and she couldn't do that. So that's why slow joggers plateau. They can't go faster because their shins and their knees kill them. And so then they go only over to weights and they somewhat lose weight, but then they start bulking because they're not burning the fat off. Remember, people think that women and men bulk because of testosterone. Well, that being the case, there wouldn't be any women bodybuilders. Women bulk because of estrogen. Some women, very powerful stuff. Some women have more levels of estrogen. The more estrogen you have, the faster you bulk.
I like that.
But that bulking means that you add muscle under the fat, Eric, because the fat sits on top of the muscle.
I love it. So before you go, I have this one for you. And it's something that I've done since I was 18 years old. Sit-ups. The Marine Corps requires them. We have to be able to do 80 sit-ups in 2 minutes, which at 18 was pretty easy. It's still pretty easy in my 40s. But a lot of people have, there's those machines in the gym. I always say the sit-up machine is probably next to the elliptical as the biggest waste of time. It's not really an exercise for your abs because I've never seen them. And people then you have the other argument, sit-ups are bad for your back. I know we do them and we have a pad, and I do have a spinal issue from a accident I had years ago, and I use it and I still love sit-ups. My wife loves sit-ups. But solve this for everybody else who's like, sit-ups are bad, that's why I don't do them. They're bad for your back. I've heard, obviously people have excuses for not working out, and if it's the littlest thing, they'll be like, oh, I heard it's bad for my back, so I don't do it. I don't know why.
Yeah, we hear that all the time. Oh, sit-ups, yeah, they're bad for, I don't do them.
Yeah.
Okay, great question. So years ago, remember Roman chairs?
Mm-hmm.
Where you would do that and hyperextend and this and that? Well, men in our age group, you're a little younger than me, your age group, these people started to develop disc issues, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
And they started to question them and survey them. And 9 out of 10 of these people at some level were doing sit-ups on a hyperextension machine, locking their legs or hooking their legs under something. So people also use the word sit-up thinking that a crunch is synonymous with a sit-up, and they are not.
Right.
So the rule of thumb is this. If you are on a mat and your legs are bent and you hook your feet under, you're going to utilize your back more so than your abs. And you're going to probably injure your back, especially if you have tight hamstrings.
Yeah.
But if you do not lock your feet and do a full sit-up, depending upon the degree of the angle and the degree of the intensity, it is the number one exercise for back protocol in the world today.
Awesome.
Based on the theory that sit-ups are bad for your back. It's funny. I've never heard of a boxer ever cancel a boxing match because he had a bad back. Have you?
No.
And what do they do thousands of?
Sit-ups.
Thank you. So there you go. So it really depends on the current level of fitness. What people don't know what to do is if they have a weak area on their body, they don't know how to do a modified version of that movement in order to prepare the body for a more vigorous movement. If they did that, they could segue from a beginner setup into an intermediate setup into a more advanced setup. But because we want the advance and everything, we do that, and then we blame it on the movement. And here's a perfect example. Let's say that you're very weak, and you start bench pressing. So you and I are spotting someone, and we put 300 pounds on the bar. He's a beginner. So we help him up with the weight. We let go, and what's going to happen to that weight? It's going to come crashing down on him, and he's going to probably break his sternum or clavicle. Then he's going to say, oh, I tried bench press. It's really bad for you. Now you get my point.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
The exercise isn't bad for you. You're not prepared to do that movement properly. Therefore, you're going to get injured, but not because of the exercise per se. There you go.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you have answered so many questions today. I mean, I love this. I think people can really take away from this as we go into summer. This weekend, we finally hit summer. I feel like we've been in summer forever. A lot of parts of the country we're finally seeing it, but I know some other parts are seeing record cool temperatures still. But this is good. We need to get out, be active. And Edward, as always, you are a great, inspiration to us all. You've been leading the charge for fitness for years, decades. I hate to age you, but decades. So it's an honor to be able to say that. So it's always good for you to come on and help folks out. And everybody, just so you know, Edward's going to be coming by our show quite often. You're going to see him a couple times a month, joining us to give us fitness tips and tricks, answer your questions. If you do have questions, please make sure to put them in the comments, and I'll make sure Edward gets them and can answer them, and then we'll put them on the show, and we'll answer your questions while we go, so we're able to answer those fitness questions. And obviously, if you need to reach out to Edward, you could just simply swipe up below and click the links that we have that will take you directly to Edward and his team. So, Edward, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Great being here again.
Oh, it's awesome.
The most important thing for people to understand is it takes time to build a village. It takes time to build a house. You don't need to bench press 200 pounds. In the realm of life, it means nothing. What's important is touch your toes, do 50 sit-ups, be able to be flexible, do 50 push-ups, do 20 push-ups. If your starting level is 1, you receive, oh, this is great, I'll let you go. Let's say that you can only do 5 push-ups, Eric. That's all you can do. Now, let's say your twin, Eric, which is you, really you, can do 30, 40, or 50 push-ups. That one, your brother, Eric, twin brother, receives the same fitness benefit doing 5 push-ups that his twin brother, Eric, gets from 40 push-ups. Isn't that powerful?
That's crazy.
You know why? Because if you tax your system and challenge it, the body acts as if it's been working out its whole life. So that 5 is as good as your 40, but that 5 has to then go to 6 to 7 and beyond to receive that same strength benefit as Eric's brother's 40. That's the key. So it doesn't matter where you start. It's like I always tell my kids, it's not how you start, it's how you end.
Amen.
Strive to be better. You never master fitness. I don't care who you are. It's like golf. It's like tennis. It's like anything in our life. Strive towards it. And that's the beautiful thing about exercise is that it gives us so many things and you're never bored. I hate when people say, oh, I did that. It's boring. You did it for 2 minutes, you ADD squared individual. What are you kidding me?
I love that one. And another one that I've heard, especially being in basketball for a lot of my life, and friends who work out, and they would laugh at some of us. And even in our 40s in the rec leagues that we played in until the pandemic hit, is I would go work out. We would work out together and do lift weights and do obviously cardio because basketball is very cardio. And people would laugh. I've heard more than one person go, I don't need to lift weights. Michael Jordan didn't lift weights. And I'm like, you just compared yourself to one of the greatest athletes of all times. And yes, as Michael got older, and actually when Michael started winning championships, as proven in the great documentary that ESPN did called Last Dance, where is it in there? When the Bulls started winning is when Michael hit the weight room in the offseason and bulked up and learned that he could run, and he was like a gazelle. The dude had wheels. But if you look at Jordan mid-'80s to Jordan when they hit that 90 streak where nobody could beat the Bulls.
His body was so much stronger.
Oh, yeah, the shoulders. Even Scottie Pippen, who liked the weight room, they all got big. Even Rodman, I love Dennis. You know, they all understand you need to be bulky and take it. And back in the 90s, especially the early 90s for our millennials watching, if you watch the NBA in the 90s, there were fights. They were throwing each other on the ground.
They got beat up every night.
Oh, the Knicks and the Pistons were like the leaders of the pack on beating people up playing hoop. You had to bulk up. So I always find it funny. Somebody wants to compare themselves. And then, you know, I hear, oh, I'm like The Rock. I'm like, no, you're not. The Rock goes to the gym 6 hours a day. Why? Because he's paid heavily by Under Armour to go to his private gym to wear that stuff with his film crew. You're not going to the gym with a film crew. Under Armour's not paying you to be there. You're not going to go for 6 and get to have his cheat day. Well, The Rock is The Rock. You're not the... People always want to compare themselves to these other people, and that's why I love having you here, because you're like, nope, here's the science behind it. This is what you need to do, and you break it down where it's more than just, 5 push-ups. That's something to do, and I always tell people that. They're like, I can't do it, and I hear a lot. Even my daughter, who's an athlete, I remember when she started, especially in track, was I want to be the best sprinter. And what she quickly found out is, yeah, you can go run, but sprinting takes practice. There's a lot of even lifting that you have to do. She never understood that in her first year of track, is how much weights and cardio equal success in a sport.
Made her faster.
It does, and she didn't believe it. And even she's a scrawny little thing, but she does great at shot put because she's built up the muscle. And it's not like she looks like, you know, some of these Russian ones from the 80s that were showing up at the Olympics that look like they've taken one too many steroids. She's, you know, able to throw it. And you look at all the folks that are leading the way. I mean, here in Oregon, we are track and field central.
Well, Eric, all you got to do is look at the genetics of you and your wife, and you're both big bone people. So big bone people should do sports that are anaerobic in general.
Yep.
It's not an accident that every single marathon runner is not anaerobically built. They can't. They have the opposite problem of you and I.
Yeah.
They can't bulk.
No.
And you don't want bulk for long distance.
Oh, God, no. But they also run 26.2 miles in 2 hours and 45 minutes.
So the more weight, and it doesn't matter what kind of weight, muscle or fat, the more stress is to their heart, they can't sustain it. That's all.
Yeah.
It's very simple. People need to understand not just the science, but even if you didn't agree, like I said, the visuals before, take a look at athletes. Their bodies look that way because they primarily do movements that are geared towards neededness to perform better in that sport. That's all.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, you see it in everything. I compare a lot. As everyone knows, I'm a diehard Yankee fan, and I always compare, and I have several in my office, of the captain. I love Jeter. And if you look at Jeter when he started in the league in the early 90s, and you look at the captain when he was winning, I mean, the Yankees win all the time, but, you know, if you look at Derek, he bulked up for his position. The shortstop, he wasn't this scrangly little kid anymore. He hit the weight room. He knew what he was doing. I'm not talking about his off-field stuff, which he's a legend at that, but if you look at what he did on the field and look at him, and even A-Rod, besides the steroids, A-Rod bulked up, became a player. All players, all athletes, people who get into fitness, even on a just I want to be in shape kind of stuff, you see the definition because you understand what you're doing. If you want to be a runner, like you've said, you're going to look like Prefontaine, right? The great Pre.
Correct.
But I mean, if you want to look, I always look at somebody who looks healthy, like Rich Froning, right? The great Rich Froning, you know, CrossFit's like basically their god. If you look at him and then you look at Jason Khalipa, and I'll pick on CrossFit, I love them. I love those guys. Both physically fit, but both very different bodies. Jason looks a lot like the Hulk, and Rich Froning is like, look like a Greek god. Like you look at him, he's almost perfect with muscle. He tells you he loves weights, hates cardio, which I think is just a CrossFit thing. I think every CrossFitter I know, I love you guys, but you're all like, we hate cardio. I'm like, but you have to run. I mean, it's great you can throw weight in the air, but.
Well, you got to remember, Eric, none of these people, we talked about weight loss today. None of these people that do this type of training, these athletes that you're talking about, were ever fat.
Nope.
Sure. Right. So they are able to lift more weights and not be fat because they didn't start out fat. And that's what the public doesn't know. When they see a celebrity's body or they see someone's body and they're like, ooh, I want to have that body. You can have that body, but you first need to lose 80 pounds. But you can't get to that body with that workout because it goes against science. I don't care how much. In fact, the more you do it, the worse you'll look.
So true.
We'll leave you with that.
No, it's been great having you on. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I want to get to our next guest, but Edward, man, it's always great having you on here. You are a legend. You're my go-to guy for all my fitness questions. That's why I share you with the world here, so more and more people can learn from you. Because, I mean, you've been teaching people. I mean, your bio, like I said at the beginning of this, goes forever with amazing, you were the first guy that was on TV talking about this with Barbara Walters and all these, Diane Sawyer and all these folks teaching.
And everyone thought I was a quack then. And I'm like, I'm telling you, this is what's happening.
Right.
And, it's come full circle, which is great. But you need a lot of stamina because everyone's an expert, as you know.
Oh, yes.
You lose 50 pounds, you're an expert. Or you write a book that you don't even know what you wrote a book about, you're an expert. And I don't use that term freely. To me, you're not an expert unless you have focused on an area of expertise, not a general area, a specific area for at least 10 years in both the lab, empirical, real data, and the real world. And most people don't have that stamina and focus to do that. You know that.
Oh, yeah. So, perfect. Okay, my friend. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Again, if you want to connect with Edward, just simply go down into the notes and click the link. We'll connect you with Edward and he'll answer questions. If you have a question, also drop them in the comments and we will both follow up and answer your questions, whatever you have. And we'll have Edward back real soon here on our Throwdown Thursday to talk about more of your fitness needs as we go through the summer and you get your butt up off the couch and start working out and figuring out what's going on and stop making excuses, get out of your own head and move forward. So, Edward, I want to thank you for joining us today, my bud, and have yourself a great weekend.
One last thing, Eric. As we become older, weights are needed more, not because we're getting older, but because we're getting older and we're not as active. That's the key thing. It's not that we're getting older. It's just that our activity level drops as we become older. So because of that, we're not taxing our muscles as much. That's why it is needed. That's all.
Perfect. You always give good advice. I'm telling you. We could just leave you on here for like hours and we could just take out notes. But then you probably want people to go to your business and pay you to give all this advice. So we should probably do that.
It's all good.
It's all good. Well, thank you, bud. We'll see you really soon. And everybody else, stay tuned for our next amazing guest. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. It's been a long episode, a long day, 3 hours straight. We've been going. We've been bringing you the breaking news out of Atlanta. We had Suki and Scott on the show today, and finally we had the great David Meltzer, and of course our fitness guru, the man, the myth, the legend, Edward Jackowski. So I'm thankful for all of our guests today, taking the time to jump on the show and give you guys entertainment, what's going on in the world, and some amazing motivation, and then how to get your butt up off the couch and get fit. We just want to thank you guys for tuning in and taking the time to watch our episode today. So on part of our entire team at To The Point, I want to thank you. And remember, I'm Eric Mitchell. Be safe, be smart, be strong, and God bless America.